Sitting in tech, it changes so fast all the time. From a leadership perspective, how can leaders make sure that they're hugging their people through these transitional changes with the tech that's here and the tech that's coming?
Putting your arm around people can be misconstrued. And here's what I mean by that is the best leaders aren't necessarily the nicest leaders. What people look for in my philosophy is I want to be consistent with every single employee. If you're consistent and transparent and honest, people will trust you. And that trust ends up going both ways. Loyalty is the outcome of that consistency, transparency, and trust. If you do those three things long enough, you'll get the loyalty. And when you have that loyalty, there is no unknown. Everyone can just have an open, honest conversation. They can put their arms around each other and have a bad day. They're encouraging me of, hey, yesterday was great. And I'm going to be able to do that as a leader. My number one goal is whoever that person is at work, I would love for them to be the same person at work that they
Mm.
are at home. Doesn't mean everyone has to like them. Doesn't mean everyone has to be their friend. But if you can get out of bed and not have to put a mask on to come to work, you're going to be much more fulfilled in that role.
Hi, I'm Christy Honeycutt, your host for Inside the C-Suite, where execs get real about leadership, impact, and what truly drives high-stake decisions. Let me ask you a question. What if the biggest barrier to hiring great people isn't speed, skills, or even technology, but human behavior? Today's guest, two-time Executive of the Year and CEO of Veti, Jason Putnam, has spent over 15 years scaling some of HR Tech's most innovative platforms. And he says the future of hiring is about trust, consistency, and understanding how people actually make decisions. This one's packed with leadership wisdom, future of work insights that you can use today. Let's jump in. Jason, it is so great to see you on Inside the C-Suite. Thank you for joining us today. I know what a wonderful human you are because I've had an opportunity to spend some time with you. But I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about you and your organization.
Yeah, my name is Jason Putnam. I am currently the CEO of a company called Veti. We are this higher acceleration platform, so I won't go too much into what we do. I've been in the HR tech space and the other a couple other spaces for a long time. Most of it is in leadership and go to market and scaling companies. I like to spend time with good human beings where I like their product, I like them as human, and I want to help them out, and that's led to me being both on boards as well as investing in companies.
Beautiful. And you're on quite a few boards. Would you say more than two, less than 20?
I am. More than 2, less than 20. I think today it's about to be 7 come this week.
Congratulations. That's quite an accomplishment. I
Thank you.
just joined my first board this year, so it's a little, I'm learning. Yes, it's
Big.
great. Well, I am very appreciative of you coming on because, and obviously, somebody that sits on that many boards has got some really good leadership gumption. And I would love for you to share
Thanks.
some things with us. So, we've had a chance to talk a little bit, and you share this pirate ship methodology, which I think is brilliant. And would you mind jumping into that for the audience?
No, I'm happy to do it, and I put leadership first above everything, and part of that's being a good human being, and I don't want to conflate that with not holding people accountable because they're different. And just over the years, I've kind of said, what kind of leader do I want to be? And the easiest way I got there was kind of thinking about it from if I was the captain of a ship, what would that look like, and what kind of ship would I would like it to be? And companies vacillate between all different kinds of types of ships, right? You may be this single proprietor running a single man sailboat. It's going to go wherever you want it to go, and that's fine. But as you start to scale, it changes things. A lot of the companies in the startup world or in the tech world tend to be more like a cruise ship. And what I mean by that is everyone's on that ship, they're having fun, there's a foosball table, there's free lunches, there's all that. People get their work done, but it's much more about the experience versus the love, trust, and the results. And then what ends up happening is sometimes different leadership has to come in there and change it. Then the other side of that spectrum is much more what I would call like a battleship or a modern day aircraft carrier. And that is it's incredibly regimented. Everyone knows exactly what they're going to do. If there's an emergency, everybody plays their part. If they're going to battle, everyone plays their part. Even the shore leave is regimented. Even the downtime is regimented. But it's incredibly efficient. People will take a bullet for the person standing next to them. Most of the time, not because they love them, but because it's their job. And I believe there's this happy medium in between. And I want to run what I consider to be a pirate ship. And here's what I mean about that. That we have the level of discipline and rigor and experience that you would have from experienced sailors on, let's say, like a battleship. But the reason we're taking that bullet for the person next to us is because we care about them and we love them. And the reason we're getting things done is because we can all share in the bounty evenly. And then a big thing for me is I don't care who you are on the ship. If I'm the captain, you're able to challenge the captain of the ship. So when it's time to show up and do your work and get things done, everyone knows their role and they do it. And when it's time to have fun, we're actually able to have fun and enjoy each other's
So,
company.
have you experienced time on all three ships?
Yes. Sometimes as a sailor, sometimes as somebody who's sitting in the command booth, but yeah, all different
Perfect.
types.
With the different ships that you have experienced, is obviously pirate ship is your favorite because that's the one that you lean towards. But is there, if you find yourself on a cruise ship in leadership, what guidance would you have in that environment?
Yeah, it for me it's interesting because I'm usually the one brought in a founder-led environment, let's say a cruise ship founder-led environment, to come in and bring some of that rigor into a cruise ship to say it's still okay to have fun, but we need to get closer to, let's say, a pirate ship. I'm never the person that comes into a pirate ship who says, hey, we need to get it closer to be a battleship. That's not why I need to be there. Sometimes I'm brought into a battleship to shift the culture back to being more of a pirate ship. But if you're on a cruise ship, understand that there's a difference in the crew
Mm.
and there's a difference in the guests. And I never thought of it this way. So it's a really interesting question that you asked. That there's a lot of people who choose to be on a cruise ship, not because they believe in the ship, but they believe in the fun of being on that ship. And if that ship starts to then turn into being something more regimented, they're going to hop off and go get on a different cruise ship. And you need to understand that the people you have on your ship may be able to be on all different kinds of those, all ships through all stages, but there are very distinct times and very distinct people who are fit for a different type of ship. And just because they were the right crew member or passenger at this stage of the company doesn't necessarily mean they will be there. And then the other thing with cruise ships are they're a bit erratic, and that's okay for a period of time. But there comes a point where you have to have clear direction as the leader of that ship. It's not just about having fun, but to say, hey, this is our destination that we're going on. Here's what your roles are when we need to do it. I'm going to give you and empower you everything you need to do it, and we're going to support you. But I'm still going to measure you on how quickly we make it to that destination.
Have you ever walked anyone off the plank?
Many times. And I think the way to do it in a human way, and I truly mean this, is instead of walking people off the plank, there's going to come a point where that ship needs to go to shore. And those people are going to decide on their own that it's not the right ship for them. I never want anyone in my life to come to me and be surprised that they got promoted or fired. Like having that open, honest communication of knowing where you are, where you sit, and a two-way feedback, there's going to come a point where you pull into port and there's going to be a portion of that crew that you're going to need to swap out because they know they're not up for the next journey on that ship.
That's a really good response. And, sitting in tech, it changes so fast all the time. So I can imagine that the skill sets within tech are going to change so fast continuously. We're going to continue to see it. Do you have any, from a leadership perspective, how can leaders make sure that they're hugging their people through these transitional changes with the tech that's here and the tech that's coming?
And it's changing so fast. So one of the most recent studies said the average half-life of a learned skill, not a behavioral skill, you know how to ride a bike, you know how to do Excel, certain kind of programming, whatever it may be. And this was a couple years old, was about 5 years. So it's probably more like 3.5 or 4 years now. So if somebody's been at your business doing the same job at your company for 4 years, chances are what they came in with is irrelevant now. So you as a leader can make a choice. You can decide to go find the next person who has the skill set you need, or you can go back and say, hey, what are we going to do to put our arm around the people here to make sure they not only they can do their job today, they're put in the right position in the company, but I'm going to empower them and give them everything they need to do from a learning development, from a support to be able to do the job tomorrow. Because if you're putting people in jobs that come natural to them, they're going to be exponentially more effective. This is just data, and they're going to stay exponentially longer. And anytime you have people longer at your company who are doing really well, your profit margins are going to be really high, which is all it is about. If you're constantly in this state of churning people, you're not going to have the margins there. To me, putting your arm around people can be misconstrued. And here's what I mean by that is the best leaders aren't necessarily
Mhm.
the nicest leaders. What people look for in my philosophy is I want to be consistent with every single employee, right? I want when you come into my quote unquote office every day, I want you to experience the same person day in and day out. And I want your peer to experience the same person and me day in and day out. That doesn't mean you have to like me, but I want to be consistent in how I'm behaving with not only you, but everyone around me. So if you can have that consistency and layer that with transparency and honesty, and not everybody needs to know everything, but if you're consistent, and transparent and honest, people will trust you. And that trust ends up going both ways. But I hear a lot of founders be like, I just want loyalty from my team. Loyalty is the outcome of that consistency, transparency, and trust. If you do those three things long enough, you'll get the loyalty. And when you have that loyalty, like with the team I have, as you talked about, and I bring this team of like serial scalers with me. If you have that loyalty, there is no unknown. Everyone can just have an open, honest conversation. They can put their arms around each other. I'm going to have a bad day. They're no, I'm going to have a bad day. They're encouraging me of, hey, yesterday was great. And I'm going to be able to do that as a leader. And this old school world that we grew up in, at least at my age, whereas most companies did run like a hierarchical military group. And that's just not effective. And that's kind of where the pirate ship idea came from. It's like, let's all be open and honest. When it's time to work, let's get together and work. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And I would love, like, my number one goal is whoever that person is at work, I would love for them to be the same person at work that
Mm.
they are at home. Doesn't mean everyone has to like them, doesn't mean everyone has to be their friend. But if you can get out of bed and not have to put a mask on to come to work, you're going to be much more fulfilled in that role. And everyone around you is going to get the best part
And
of
your
you as well.
production's gonna be off the chain for sure. So, I recently got my, strength certification from Gallup, and there was a thank you. There was a poll that they did, and I was kinda shocked. So, I'm gonna ask you the same question and see if you answered the way I did. So, they ran this big poll of what employees need to see, like what's most important to them. And there were a couple of things that were, trust was one, hope was one. Those were the top two. I'm trying to figure out what was the third one. So it was hope and trust. And they asked everybody, they said, which one do you think was ranked number one out of hope and trust?
I mean, for me, I would always say trust over hope, because even if things are bad and there is no hope, if they trust you enough to deliver that message, then you can all go figure out what to do
So
next
I
together.
answered the exact same way, but it's actually hope was number one. And then trust was number two. I'll see if I can find the study and shoot it to you later or share it with this.
Yeah, I would
But
love
it
that.
was insane because I think like you do, like, well, you have to have trust to hope. But then I realized after looking at the findings, no, you have to have hope and then you can trust. So what they're saying is that all of these, are they just want hope. They want hope for having a purpose-driven career. They want hope for having psychological safety. They want hope. We're in a really weird time where we want hope, but trust was very closely second. And just reflecting on that, do you think that as leaders, we can lean in a little differently if the metrics are true that hope is number one and trust is number two?
I understand why they're saying it. Never been asked this question, but my visceral response is, and I'm looking at it from a leadership perspective, not an employee perspective. I'm really good at teaching hope and making have people feel hope. But if I'm full of crap and they don't trust me, the
Feel
hope's
the same
irrelevant.
way.
So I think there's a bit, yeah, I feel like there's potentially from a bad leadership perspective. I've met very ineffectual leaders who tried to lay out hope, but everyone knew they were
Mm.
full of crap. So to me, that's why it's inverted for me. If you have the trust first, then they know the hope that they're experiencing and the message you're putting on them is from an honest and genuine place.
I tend to agree with you. Like I said, I answered the exact way you did, and I was very shocked that it wasn't right based on their research. So when we talk about, are there ways, Jason, that I mean, you've had a very successful career and will continue to have a successful career, and you do have a loyal band of mercenaries or whatever we want to call them. They're beautiful. What is it that's so special about you? What is it that's so special about your methodology that creates this in them? And how can other leaders replicate that?
I don't think I'm special, but I appreciate the question. And I would never ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do. So let's talk about the team. And the team grows as we go company to company, like we bring people along with us. We talk about them being serial scalers. So I hate to give a ton of analogies, but I'm just a visual person. So if you think about whether it's scaling a business or turning a business around, I'm a big Formula One fan. So I think of it like, I know you're a car person too. Yeah. So I think of it like it's not just about the driver in the car. The races are won in the pit, right? So in this example, if I'm the driver, I'm on the hook for the results, but no driver wins without that pit crew. And if they can't execute at speed, then you're going to lose the race. So races are won and lost in the pit. And the thing about pit crews is they operate like a symphony. Each of them knows what to do. They know what good looks like. They know what the timing looks like. They know what the focus is. They don't even have to talk to each other. And the thing that could really mess up a pit crew is, let's say somebody has to leave or they go work for another team. You have to bring that new person in. That's exactly how I think about this from a serial scalar perspective. Like, I can't turn a business around or scale a business in 2 seconds. It's impossible. Nobody can. But with the right crew that you bring in, you can change that trajectory in a few quarters and not that 12 to 24 month scenario. And here's when I say they're special, they're all top of their game at what they do. But my goal is to put people in jobs and particular roles, even though the title may be one thing, but I want to put things in front of them that I know that fill their bucket and that they're good at. And if it's something that they're good at and it fills their bucket, they don't have to be managed. So there's this big thing of, I don't like to be micromanaged. But if as a leader, I know what fills up somebody's cup and they're really good at it, I'm going to do my best to put the things in front of them that they're going to be able to execute with their eyes closed from a muscle memory perspective. And they're actually going to get some gratification. So when they get out of bed every morning, they're going to feel excited to do that things. Of course, it's not always the case. There's always going to be things we have to do that we don't want to do. But in that scenario, I don't have to micromanage them. One of our people on our team joked that everyone who's kind of come with this and will keep going with us has WWJD bracelets, but is what would Jason do? And they're joking because they all know, like, they don't have to reach out for me for approval. They don't have to reach out. So I'm able to focus on driving the car. And I just have so much confidence that when I pull into that pit, everything's going to go perfectly. And when you look at those results, and I'm going to layer this into kind of two answers to your question, how can leaders do that more? It's really about you. It's not about the team. So as much as you start thinking about, are there people who I can hire who are going to be like that? No, it's about you. And it really is, you have to put yourself above everything, or put them above everything else, right? Like, I'm going to do what I can to make sure my people are successful. And I've always been that way. I don't want to do it at the detriment of the company or myself, but it is not a zero-sum game. We can all rise together. And now put yourself in that leadership position and say, okay, but what does that mean if I can bring a team in of that serial scalers? We've been here 10 months. Our qualified demand gen is up 400%. Our weighted pipeline is up millions and millions of dollars. We've won 3 major industry awards. We were covered in Yahoo Finance, CBS, Fox News, Morningstar, Market Insider. We were featured in tons of podcasts. We had 43 partner source leads. We had almost 0 a year ago. So it's like, that's what good looks like. But if you start with the results and then start trying to figure out which people go in there for your own benefit, it's not going to work. You've got to come in with this. I mean, I guess it is a vision of hope. I may disagree with what I said earlier, this vision of hope. But because this team already trusts each other, more importantly, they trust each other. They trust me, but they trust each other. So they're able to be in these trenches together and just go get things done. So we're bypassing the kind of trust part and just getting rid of, hey, if Jason thinks this is the right place and I'm going to go do it with people I've done again, let's just go do it. And there is no political jockeying with my team at all. And it's never, oh, I want to get on this person's side or I want to get on this person's side. They literally would take a bullet for each other. They would give up a paycheck for each other. They would miss a deadline to help another
And
person.
those employees, humans, those are rare. They're not out there, right? We've got lots of organizations all over the place that is very cutthroat, nice to your face. We're in a situation where I think a lot of leaders are scared. They want to be liked, so they don't necessarily show up or position the way that they should. If you were speaking to a colleague or a leader that had that a little bit of hesitation of not wanting to give the feedback that's needed or not wanting to show up in a certain way because they're concerned about being liked, how would you address that? Like, what guidance would you give?
Yeah, and typically it's a great example. Typically, I see that I want to be liked persona in one of two ways. It's a new leader who has come in and they're inheriting a team, but they've been a leader for a while. Or it's, hey, we were all the same and now I've promoted this person to be above
Mm.
their peers and they still want to be liked. So to me, I'm going to go back to what I just keep saying: be consistent, be honest, be transparent, right? That will build trust. I can tell somebody the roughest review they've ever gotten in their life, and I can do it with confidence and they can receive it with love and trust to understand it's not personal, right? And I'm telling you this in a way to make you better. And I believe this may be a slightly different answer. If you look at kind of a 2 by 2, here's kind of how I think about not the human, but the human who's in that particular situation. And those X and Y axis are, did they believe in the vision? Maybe do they have hope? Right. We'll go back to that. And are they
Hmm.
good at their job? Those are two things. So the top right's really easy. They're bought in, they're on the bus, let's go, and they're really good at their job. Those are people you leave alone. Then you have your bottom left. They're cancerous, they're not good at their job. Those are the people you fire. Real simple. Top left, people who believe in the vision, right? We're all in it together with some management support and love, they can be a top performer. And this is maybe just good leadership lesson 101. The ones that really can destroy a company and where people feel like as a leader you want to be liked by is the bottom quadrant. Those are people, let's say it's a salesperson who are crushing quota, but they don't believe in the mission. They're the most detrimental employees you will ever have in your career. And there's been at least 5 companies I've walked into in the first week I've fired the top sales rep. Right. And everyone thought you're crazy. And everyone else's numbers went up because this person was undermining culture to keep themselves on this pedestal. So understand it's not about being liked, and be confident enough that make a decision that you feel like is going to be for the greater good of everybody else. And it has never backfired on me. But just be transparent. Don't worry about being their friend. They'll be your friend later. These people were not my friends when when we started. We're all friends now, but they know who's in charge, right? And I don't mean that in like this arrogant way. They do, right? And it's like they may ask and I'll say no and they're okay with a no.
No, it's a really good environment that you've built. When's the first time you experienced trust given to you in your career?
It was very given to me. It was very early on. I was a leader really early on, but I didn't know what I was doing. I would say it kind of came later in life, maybe second VP job, and I walked into a company that was doing well, but the environment and the culture was incredibly toxic. And I was able to quickly say part of the problem, part of the solution, part of the problem, part of the solution. And then there was a group in the middle, and that group was torn between both sides. I fired 3 people the first hour I was at the company. And what you found was the people who were in leaned in even more and started to trust that. Number one, I saw it. Number two, I was willing to take action. Right. The people in the middle saw it and were able to come over to this group. And then the people on who were still what I call like zombie culture over here, many of them left or turned it around. One of those who I inherited, this was 15, 18 years ago, is still with me today, like at 5 companies. Right. So it was like somebody we're able to bring around. That's really the first time we looked at it and said, hey, you can be a good human being, you can do the right things, and people will not only trust you, they'll be friendly, but they'll work actually harder for you than you using a stick versus a carrot.
I love what you said about toxic because I feel like, and just kind of shifting a little bit into wellness, as leaders, you're you have a lot of immense stress and quotas and all the things you have to take care of, not only the business, but your people, your family. How do you keep yourself well mentally, physically, and how do you incorporate that in your organization to inspire that in others?
It's always going to be hard as a leader because, and the higher you get up in an organization and the more responsibility you have, the harder it is to have a work life balance. Like it just is. And there's kind of 2 approaches to that. One is do what I do and, take phone calls in the closet when you're on vacation. You expect all your employees to do that. I'm the opposite of that. Uh, so for me, when I got here, we did not have at Betty, we did not have the best culture. It was quite the opposite. This year I won an award. I was like one of 23 global CEOs who won an award on culture. And it's a big deal. And the approach I had with the organization is I want an envious culture, and let's talk about what that means. I don't just want you to work here. I want you to be comfortable that when your kids are of a working age, you would want
Oh,
them
I
to
like
come
that.
work here. You would want your children to come work here, right? That doesn't mean it's a cruise ship. That means they're going to get clear guidance. They're going to be paid fairly, right? All the things that make kind of a good thing. But it does start with you as the leader. And I've had to do a much better job, especially as I've gotten older, saying, here are the guardrails I'm willing to have. And it changes, right? If you go through an acquisition, you're going through a fundraise, you have a stressful time, your work-life balance isn't going to be as good. But I run a pretty regimented calendar where, depending on the time of year, I get up every day at 5 and I work out. And I listen to an hour of content every morning. That could be for fun. It could be for well-being. It could be for business purposes. I block out a period of time in the middle of the day to do something. I take my kids to school most days, right? It's a 15-minute exercise, right? And then I do a lot of the cooking. So I'm like, hey, I'll block this period of out to like prep this stuff, but I'm also constantly listening to content to also become a better person. And then the other thing that I think really helps from a go to therapy. Everyone should go to therapy, right? And I really mean that. I have coaches and I have therapists, right? And it's really good. And most of my therapy sessions are on work, right? And dealing with kind of human stuff around there. There's nothing wrong with having somebody to talk to. If you're a CEO, it's the lonely position you can imagine, right? And that's why I've surrounded myself with these mentors. And the other thing is like it's okay to make a mistake. Like nobody is looking at you as a leader going, if they make a mistake, then they're a failure or they're weaker or they don't deserve to be in that position. Like I make tons of mistakes every day. So be okay with not being
I
perfect.
love that. Give yourself grace. And I love your answer, Jason, from a family perspective and a spouse perspective. Have you seen that that works? Are you leaning into that differently?
Yeah, I try. We all do. And as your kids get older, it changes. So I have a almost 16-year-old and a 11-year-old. I've become a much better leader once I became a parent. And I've become a much better leader. My youngest has Down syndrome. So there's a level of patience and timing and understanding that you have to have. The hardest part for me is to be able to compartmentalize turning work stuff off when I am in the midst of family stuff. And that's been the biggest change for me, being able to say, okay, I'm not going to be thinking about the 42 things that happened from work or what I'm going to do tomorrow, even if it's 15 minutes or an hour, even if it's just taking them to school. Like when they get my time, they're truly getting my time is my goal. I'm not perfect. And when work gets my time, it truly gets my time. And it's when work bleeds into your brain that's actually what causes the
I love
problem.
that intentional time is so important. We have special needs on our side too. So it does shift. And it's interesting that you said that. And thank you for being transparent and vulnerable to share that because I do hear this on these interviews more from women than I do men. And so I love because it is two-sided. I think that having children, it does change who you are. It changes the way you lead, regardless of your gender. So really appreciate you sharing that because my boys are 30 and 32. So,
You started early, I started late.
we are about the same age. I think I might be older than you, but my son, transparently told me I was talking to him one night and he said, "Mom, please don't work all night. Please don't work all night." And it hit me different because I thought, "What
Mhm.
did I do?" Because I was a single mom most of their growing up, and I thought, "What did I just do to my children?" Because I set the example for which they are now striving. But the multi-generations that we find ourselves in, I think is beautiful because we learn from each other. And I think
Yep,
the newer, your kids coming up, my children, they see the world differently and they challenge us, which I think is
I do.
important. Like my son used to say all the time, work life balance. And I'm like, you know what you're talking about. You just you go work and listen to your elders. But we have these debates all the time. And it's interesting because he's a director at a university and coaches and mentors the students. And he's right. He's 100% right about his point of view. So with your little ones growing up, are they seeing things a little bit differently than maybe you did?
Yeah, of course. I grew up very, I wouldn't say blue collar, I would say black collar. So it was
Mhm.
always the grind, right? And, even from like especially for men, like from an emotional vulnerability perspective, it was pretty much push it all down and get cancer like the rest of us, right? Like that's the environment we grew up in. And you can perpetuate that or you can change it. So I've tried to be somewhere in the middle, but yeah, I can see with the girls, two daughters, that, um, especially with the oldest being so close to the youngest in a caring way, she sees the world differently from the perspective of what's important. She still wants nice things, right? She still wants to get good grades. She's an amazing student, amazing athlete. But when she comes home, she does her homework. And then if she can spend time not thinking about that stuff and not thinking about, talking to her friends and truly spending time with her sister, like she prioritizes that stuff. And she's really, really good at prioritization. Um, and that's something I didn't learn for a long time. And it's that intentional use of time that you were talking about that when we get it with her as a family or individually, it's all in. And that's enough because either if it's individual or as a group, you're getting all that attention. So then when you don't get it, you understand that there is going to come a time when you're going to get
Mm,
it.
I love that. Well, and it sounds like you built such confidence in her too. And it sounds like she'll be a fierce protector for those that need it, right, in
I
the
hope so.
future. which is great. So, we've talked about a lot of different subjects, and you are a very strong leader. It is obvious in the way you speak and the way your team shows up. Is there anything
Thank you.
else that you'd like to leave with the audience that I didn't ask? Because there's so many beautiful nuggets that you have. I think I could spend days with you on this subject.
Yeah. At the end of the day, everyone wants to do the best that they can. So if you have somebody, whether it's in your personal life or who's an employee or you're an employee, if somebody's not doing their job or not doing it well, it's very, very, very rare. It's because they don't want to do a good job, right? And there's this wonderful lady named Nancy Grace, and she talks about the concept of skill and will, right? And my whole team has all the will in the world from a pirate ship perspective. If I said we're going to go work for a robotics company tomorrow, and you're all going to be robot scientists, they'd all say yes, but they would have zero skill to be able to do it, right? Then there are people who have skill and no will,
Mm.
right? And understand that if somebody's not doing a good job, it's most likely your fault as the leader. Because if I were to say, this is one of Nancy Grace's thing, if I were to say to one of my people, I need you to go build a 747 and I want it in my driveway in 2 days, they would just say yes and go try to
Mm.
figure it out versus me being able to come side by side with them or say, I know you can't do it. Let's do it together. Or let's bring an expert who knows how to do it. So it's rare that leaders are going to take responsibility for employee failures, but most likely it's on you. And I mean that for me as
Well,
well.
no, and I think that's good. There was a time in my career that I had a it was called the Kraken because if people there was managers that liked to be liked and wouldn't manage appropriately, and they would bring them to me and say, "We need you to manage them out." And I would say, "I will manage them, but we will manage them to understand where their strengths are and if they can be salvaged. If they can be salvaged, we'll salvage them." Because I had no idea what they were told or what they understood or how they were managed. And more than not, they were salvaged, which was great. But I always took that quote that you just said that it's on you 'cause it is on you. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
if you're not
It is on you.
clear, if you're not providing guardrails, if you're not providing a safe place to have a conversation for the raise their hand if they don't understand, there's so many different traits in there that could be so toxic if not addressed in a very just respectful, loving, transparent conversation. That's a huge one. That is a
Yeah, I
huge
agree.
one. Well, there was one other thing I was gonna ask you, and you just brought it up. What you just made me think of is a term called responsibility without authority, which I think is an extremely dangerous place to be. So I'm just curious if you've seen this in your time working as a leader, and then what your advice is if someone finds themselves in a situation of responsibility without authority or influence.
Yeah, I've seen it. And I'm going to say my answer is depends because it depends if they were put in that place or they created that
Mm,
spot for themselves. And both of those
okay.
could be true. So when we talked about those four quadrants, chances are that person in the bottom right quadrant put themselves in that position. They created authority,
Yep.
fake authority, which in turn made them feel good because of responsibility. It's very, very, very difficult. And we as leaders do this all the time. And I really try hard not to, but I'm guilty of it as the rest of us to say, hey, just go talk to so and so and get this done, or go do this and get it done. And you're not, that person doesn't have, sometimes it's not even the authority, it's even the influence or the skill set to go be able to get that done, but they want to do what's right by you to be able to get it done. So again, as a leader, it's on you. If you're expecting somebody to go be influential or get something done, you've got to empower them to have the right and the ability to go get it done.
Love it. Love it. Such a good nugget. Well, and then as we close the interview, Jason, what would be your top three things that you're looking to improve on yourself as a leader in the next 12 months?
I always want to get better at communication, specifically very, 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 very clear communication. And here's what I mean by that. So I know what the end result needs to look like, and my team knows how to get to that end result. But there's sometimes a gap in there that says, hey, here's exactly the metrics that lead to a healthy outcome of that particular metric. But we're all going so fast. It's like, you guys know what to do, just go do it. So it's a thing I definitely want to get better at. Patience is also one of them. And that's like dialing back the speed. So I'm a big fan of when there's a decision that you can reverse, make it very quickly. And there's a decision you can't reverse, take your time and think about it. And sometimes I'll conflate those two things, right? Because as a leader and going fast in a startup, I just want to be able to go and do that. And then the other one is just quiet time. If I look at my calendar today, this whole week, I probably have 42 video calls on my calendar this week. So a lot of it is incredibly reactive. And I have to like set up, and we just had this call today with the leadership team where we're redoing everyone's calendar, where people have hours a day to actually focus on not just the work that needs to be done, but to be proactive. And I need to be the person who's leading that by example versus just saying to get it.
Love that you just said that. So they have hours in the day to be proactive because I've, formerly worked. Well,
Not yet. January 1st, it's
but
coming.
it's this is why you win awards because everybody else is like, "Hey, let's have no meeting Friday so people can get shit done." Okay, great. They need time to get their work done, but you're saying let's give them time to be proactive, which will in turn get the work done and maybe bring that wellness that so many organizations seek. You're going to be ushering that in. Love it. That's like so great.
So we have our leadership meeting. We call it the Brain Trust. And then we have a meeting every Wednesday that's called Get Shit
Hmm.
Done. That's the name of it. And that is anybody shows up and says, I need this, and you've got 24 hours to get it to me. Right. And then now we want to have this proactive time where people can just think about not just what needs to be done, but what potentially may need to be done that we're
Well,
not
you're
even thinking
opening
about.
up so many opportunities for the brain pathways to connect and usher in those ideas, which will push you so forward, so far forward. I'm excited. I'm going to check back in with you and see how this is going next year. Well, Jason, again, thank you, my friend. It has been such a great honor to get to speak to you
Of
and
course.
pull these wonderful leadership nuggets from you. If anybody listening would love to connect with you or the company, where should they go?
Yeah, if you're interested in Veti, it's just Veti.co. Want to talk to me? I'm happy to help anyone at any time with nothing in return. And I mean that. Just find me on LinkedIn. It's Jason Putnam.
Well, Jason, thank you again for holding space for me and for our audience and from our
Of course.
community. Thank you for everything you're doing. It's beautiful. All right.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys.